Welcome to the CBIA BizCast. I'm your host, Ali Warshavsky, and today on our podcast, we are joined by Shawn Peterson at PEZ in Orange, if you couldn't tell already. Shawn has an extremely interesting story of how he wound up here, and many people don't know that PEZ is right here in Connecticut, so we're hoping we bring light to that situation and talk about some of the fun things behind us. Welcome to the BizCast, Shawn.
You're welcome. Welcome to PEZ.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here, and from a lot of the research I was doing, I learned that PEZ was actually invented to help people stop smoking.
That's correct. Yeah, it was way ahead of its time. This is 1927. You know, so people didn't look at smoking the way they do now, and certainly weren't inventing products to be an alternative to that. So Mr. Haas created this brand and was kind of a visionary for his time. And, you know, thankfully that product led ultimately to where we're at today.
Yeah, something that a lot of kids I know growing up, I was obsessed with which PEZ character I could get. So it's certainly changed, but it was also developed overseas, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, we're an Austrian company. It started in Austria in 1927, came to the U.S. in 1952.
And what made the brand settle in Orange, Connecticut, of all places?
Well, the corny joke that we tell is there's no grape, lemon, or orange, or grape, lemon, or cherry Connecticut, so we had to go to Orange. But the real fact is it's a local resident, Roger Boyd, who has since passed. He was on the Orange Economic Board of Development. He was in Europe on a reverse trade mission trying to work with European companies, encourage them to come to New England, more specifically Connecticut, set up factories, manufacturing, things like that. And he was responsible for a few companies being here, and it was just by happen chance that he met members of the Haas family. They were looking to expand. It created the opportunity to introduce himself and what he was doing to them, and it ultimately created a really lasting friendship between him and the family. And I was lucky enough to meet Mr. Boyd a couple of different times. Shortly after I came on board, you know, I'm just such a crazed fan of this stuff, you know, and I love the history of this more than anything. And I looked him up, you know, because I'm a Midwest transplant from Kansas City. And when I got to Orange, I'm like, you know, some of these people must be close. And I actually started through the phone book, and I found him, or ultimately found him after talking to several Boyds that had no idea why I was calling them. But he was very nice and very interested and said, yes, I would love to come see what you're working on, see the factory again, and I'll share as much as I can with you. And he was awesome. He was such a nice man.
Yeah, it's like having an encyclopedia of PEZ at your fingertips.
Absolutely.
Right?
These are the people that made it happen at the day. So, you know, it's really, you know, for, you know, somebody that enjoys history, you know, you're talking to the people that did it, and they can explain firsthand how it became. So it was a lot of fun.
And now, you know, you are him, really. You're the encyclopedia of knowledge around PEZ. And it's funny because the next question I was going to ask you just flashed up on the screen behind you, which is a Jeopardy replay where they're asking a whole category of PEZ questions. But how did we get this word PEZ?
Oh, PEZ, it comes actually from the German word for peppermint, which is pfefferminz, and it's quite a long word. So Mr. Haas used the first, middle, and last letter of the word, which was PEZ, came up with a little acronym that was PEZ, and it served two purposes. It was easily pronounceable in just about any language, and it was a trademarkable brand name, so it served two purposes for him. So it was just kind of random, but ultimately from the word peppermint.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, right? Like popping them in and to stop smoking, hopefully. So your history with the company is absolutely fascinating. You know, we were just talking, you were at Hallmark. This was a hobby, and now you're here. Talk us through how you became so knowledgeable and then ultimately landed what I would say might be your dream job, right?
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah, it was a hobby. It was something fun, like everybody. You collect PEZ, and you know, a couple, 2 or 3 turns into 20 or 30, and it quickly goes from there. And this is, probably the early 90s, right there. I've been doing this a little over 30 years at this point, and there was a couple of books that came out that were just kind of basic, preliminary, here's what we know. And this is pre-internet, so it's not, you know, Google this stuff and find information. This is kind of, you know, you're on your own a little bit here. And the person that had done the book said they weren't going to do it again. You know, the collection that was used didn't exist anymore, and they had no interest in continuing with this, and it got to be one of those things, if you want it bad enough, can you do it yourself? And I never aspired to write a book. I never thought I could write a book, and I spent the day at Barnes & Noble and just started picking out books that I liked, I thought were cool looking, and I started looking to see who the authors were, who the publishers were, and making phone calls to people and just explaining, I found your book, are you the author? What can you tell me about your experience? What would you do differently if you had the opportunity? This is what I'm looking to do, and any advice you can give me. And people were so nice. Once you find the right people, again, you're talking to people that had, no, this is not the right person, sorry, thank you. But once you find the right people, they were so outgoing and, willing to give you information. It really created the drive that I want to try to do this. And I came up with, this book concept, and I hired a professional photographer, and we thought we'd be able to knock, the photography piece out in a weekend, and that was not even remotely close to what we got. I think we ended up working on it almost 6 months, trying to photograph everything, and I started doing the text and everything and putting this together, and it was successful. For a niche book that just is so specific about one topic of PEZ, how many people is this really going to appeal to? And they sold a phenomenal amount of books, and that led to a second edition and a third edition and some derivative works of that, and they're asking me to do some contributing articles to different things, and I'm like, oh my God, what I'm doing here, really? You want me to do this? And it was just really so cool, and through that just led to different opportunities ultimately, and it connected me to the company after a few years because they were aware of the work, and certainly I approached to let them know this was something I was working on to see if there was any concern with doing that. And so they were giving the book to people that worked here. Just here's kind of a history of what we've done, using it as a little bit of a training piece. And, after years of kind of trying to cultivate a relationship, I had this idea of, well, if I got to change jobs, they always say, do what you love. And, what is that exactly? They've already got PEZ and it's established, but what can we do with that? So, really this isn't anything different. It's kind of a template that works for anybody that manufactures. You manufacture, you bring people in, you offer, some kind of tour or visit, you sell the merchandise, you show them the product, and, it works out. I thought, well, that'd be kind of cool. And I knew enough that they didn't have the archival material in storage or, on hand to do, and that was kind of the hook for me. It's like, I'd like to be the guy to run this, if it's a direction you want to go, and, if you hire me, the collection comes with me, and we can use that as the foundation for, the museum. And it just took a few years, quite a few years, but it ultimately worked out. And when I started, this wasn't here, it was dirt and gravel, and we kind of pushed the walls out a little bit and added some new construction and a new idea and concept, and
brighter colors,
brighter colors, absolutely. And for the first time, we've been able to invite the public, to see what we do and how we do it. And prior to that, unless you read the tiny little print on the side of your candy pack that you saw Orange, Connecticut, there really was no idea that we were here. So now we've been able to open the doors and give you a glimpse inside to what happens.
And you just mentioned most of this memorabilia, if not all, is yours.
Correct, yeah. There's a few pieces that do belong to the company, like the motorcycle over my shoulder, but the vast majority of the things on display and on the walls are from my personal collection.
In a personal question, what drew you to PEZ? There's so many things you can collect. People are collecting Hot Wheels, anything. But PEZ was it for you. What started that hobby?
I think initially it was, the colors and the characters and really how it worked. It was kind of a nostalgia sort of thing. I kind of remembered them from being a kid, and I was like, well, these are kind of cool. It's bright, it's fun. The characters, and there was nothing known about it, so it was just kind of a whimsy sort of thing to like, I got a couple of these, they're 50 cents, and you go home, you spent $5 and you got a few PEZ, and then the next time you go, to a flea market or something, let's see if there's something different. And then you start talking to people, and there's something I've never seen before. It looks old. How old is this? Tell me about it. It was kind of the detective aspect of it, because things weren't so accessible. That's what really kind of drew me in as well, and it's got such a cool backstory too. So
yeah, it's true that I think, oh, you just go on eBay or Amazon and look for the one you want, but long before that wasn't possible, and it really was networking, the original form of
absolutely.
networking.
And that collector mentality kicks in, and I've still got a lot of the written correspondence from the early days of, you write somebody a letter and wait for hopefully a response to come back to you. You're not sending emails to people. It's, addresses and phone numbers and try to talk to people on the phone. And it was different. You'd walk into a store and not know what you're looking for. It's like, what dispensers do they have? And you'd pick a Saturday and go hit 20 different stores and try to find things. And now it's like you're online and this store has this one has this, here's the UPC for it, and it's different.
But no surprises anymore.
Right.
Well, that is, I never thought of it till right now how collecting has changed and how it's a little bit different. I heard, so I'm going to ask you to confirm, that billions of PEZ are consumed annually.
Yeah, that's about right. I think globally, the numbers are international parent company shares like 7 billion candies, something like that, 5 million dispensers, something crazy.
Goodness.
It just, it truly is global. We're in about 60 different countries, and I think United States seems to be a good portion of that. There's a lot more collectors here, but we're all over. People know it, and if they don't know the name, you just give them the little thumb motion, and they're like, oh yeah, we know that.
So then, how many do you think you eat a year?
Oh, we're going to drop that way down, way down. That's the nice thing about being here. You can have all you want, but the interest starts to drop pretty quick. So I try to stick to like the new flavors that we're trying or something like that. We do some of the development. We've got a little press downstairs that we work on, and we get to sample some of those early on and see which one's best.
Backstory, my dad used to work for M&M's, so I did get to sample the new ones, and that is exciting to taste it before it goes on the market. But I do agree with you, up until recently I never wanted to see an M&M again because they were so readily available. That's changed over the last few years. I'm back at them. But what is the most popular flavor?
I think that's up to the individual. Year after year, we've done some different things. We've tried to create some, excitement in different things, but really it comes back to the core flavors. What I mean by that is just, the basic fruits: cherry, grape, lemon, orange, strawberry. One of those year after year, just hands down, those are the continue best sellers, and we got a shout out years ago in Stand By Me, the movie. If he could only have one food for the rest of his life, it was cherry flavored PEZ, and that seemed to be, one that stuck. But, it's really up to the individual. But for us, certainly those 6 flavors are the best sellers.
What about you?
It changes, some days, a little sour candy's good. You get the sour pineapple, which, people are like, what?
I didn't even know that one existed.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The sour green apple, or, just go basic grape or cherry. Can't go wrong.
I know. I love how they're so little, too, so you don't feel guilty after popping a PEZ.
You can eat a whole roll, 35 calories, 12 tablets, you're buzzed on sugar, you got a little excitement, and you didn't really do anything bad. So.
I was going to ask you how many calories are in them. Now I know. What is the weirdest flavor you think you guys have come up with?
Oh, there's been some stuff over the years for sure, without a doubt. Probably the 1960s was interesting. They did chlorophyll. They did a flower flavor, and not like, F-L-O-U-R, F-L-O-W-E-R, and that was with the psychedelic dispensers, and that was,
Makes sense,
I'd have loved to have been in on those meetings, when somebody was deciding what we're going to do with that, I think they probably was using the word man, I got a good idea, let's do some flower flavor candy, and it's extremely rare these days, even from a collector's standpoint, you find some of these things that exist, but, that's one of the harder flavors out there.
Oh, so it's still like someone might actually still have a packet
They
of
might
it.
still have it, yeah.
Might
It's
be a little stale.
amazing where this stuff ends up, and that's the joy and excitement from a collecting standpoint is trying to find people that have these things still, squirreled away in the attic or, in drawers or, whatnot, and, find things.
I know, I'm regretting now. I just think of when my parents moved, we had that drawer there. There probably were some few PEZ dispensers in there. When did those dispensers, we talked a lot about the candy, but the dispensers is really what draws a lot of people to collect them. When did they start becoming like people, or I shouldn't say people, probably characters?
Sure. Yeah, you can look, the dispenser was developed in the late 1940s. So 1949, it didn't have a character head, it was just a little thumb grip, and it was still marketed to adults. It wasn't until the introduction to the United States, which was 52, they tried to still market and sell as they had throughout the rest of the world, and it really didn't do as well. So, the good thing about that, sometimes it kind of creates you to do a little shift in your marketing and in your thinking. And they decided, let's go from peppermint, because that was the primary flavor at the time, and kids really don't like peppermint, those strong flavors. So they introduced the fruit flavors. Let's put a little dimensional cartoon character head on top of this dispenser base and kind of shift it to a younger market, and it was that gave PEZ the excitement and the longevity that we enjoy today.
And what is the most popular, I guess, what would you call it? Do you call it just dispenser? I guess it's the proper term.
Yeah.
With the most popular.
Hands down, year after year, it's Santa.
Yeah.
He's
a pretty jolly guy.
He's pretty jolly.
We've
done many iterations of Santa over the years, so we get to decide what Santa looks like, as far as a PEZ dispenser every year. And it's such a big holiday because everybody's had one in their stocking or something like that. It's just an easy
nostalgia.
stocking
You're
stuffer.
right. I used to get those in my stocking. And so that's so interesting. Every year you guys are developing a new one. So it's not the original
every year
Santa,
necessarily.
but
Usually we're on
a
bi-yearly cycle.
Okay.
Every 2 years, try to get a little use out of it, and then you introduce something new, and we keep it balanced with the other seasons. So there's always something new every year. It might be Easter, Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day, something like that. So always working on something.
So you get the input on it, right?
Sometimes, yeah. We get to
so
talk
cool.
about what they look like, or what would be a good ancillary character for some of the seasons, or things like that.
So Santa is the most popular. Is there one that's like the most desired or expensive from a certain year that just kind of went viral and collectors are after it still?
There's some stuff with great backstories to it, some rarities, things like that. We've got a press release downstairs on one of the displays from 1962 when President Kennedy visited Austria. His parent company is from Austria, so they wanted to provide a gift, so they created this little set of 3 dispensers with a political donkey, a golden glow, which was a regular that didn't have the character head, and a bozo, the clown dispenser for Caroline at the time, and presented it to him. And we've got the press release, the photo, but to date that set, nobody knows whatever happened to it. So, that's probably ultimately one of the, if that was to ever turn up, and I've done a little bit of due diligence trying to track it down, and nobody seems to know what's ever happened to it. It's not in the Kennedy library. Some of the people I've talked to there, have found documents related to it, but it indicates that it was returned to sender. And, the only thing that we can surmise is likely it, had a consumable. It came with candy, so they're not going to offer a sitting president something consumable that came from the outside. So it was like, thank you, but we can't accept. And, it went back. But, some of the, Kennedy historians that I've talked to said, for all we know, it could have been handed to, one of the Secret Service guys for, take this home to your kids or something like that. And one of the donkeys did show up. A few years after we started and opened this, somebody contacted me through email and said, I've got a bunch of PEZ dispensers from my grandfather, and I can't find anything about this one. And he attached a picture, and I was like, oh my God, this is one of those things that everybody hopes for. It's like, it's the rarity. There was only one known at this time, and this guy's got number 2. And so we invited him to come in, and he told the story. And his grandfather used to do bookkeeping for PEZ back in the day and got it from the former vice president. And, his mother, he brought the whole family, and they're like, he's telling us this thing might be worth more than $10,000. We think he's crazy, and we wanted to come down and hear it firsthand, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just such a cool story, and they let us put it on display here for probably about 6 months or so, and we did a number of press releases, and he ultimately sold it. And I think he got close to $20,000 for it. So,
do you know who has it now?
I do.
I was gonna say, I bet you're keeping tabs on where that donkey goes.
And they were nice enough to offer it to us, as part of the collection. But that was a little deep for me.
So now we'll pivot to what is actually produced here, right? You guys are manufacturing the candy and the dispensers next door?
No, just the candy.
Just the candy,
Yeah,
okay.
the candies are brought in, or the dispensers, I should say, are brought in from overseas.
Okay.
We manufacture the candy, package, and distribute from here. So we've got all of the corporate offices, we've got manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, things like that here.
So how many people are working on the other side of the building?
It varies. It really does. It depends on time of year, the season, what's going on. It's quite a number of people. We've got everybody from our CEO, marketing, finance, accounting, the graphics, the creative people, our IT support. We've got the retail operation, production, warehousing. It runs the gamut. Yeah, it's quite a number
big
of people.
number.
Yeah.
Do you have a ballpark, like a couple hundred?
I don't know. It like I said, it changes. I hate to
Okay.
speculate
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
don't get involved. I know my little side. For the retail, we've
Yeah.
got some full timers and things like that. But I'd hate to speculate on what we do.
Yeah. But it is a manufacturing floor. How did COVID impact you guys?
It was tough. I mean, it was tough all the way around. We closed the visitor center. This is the retail piece, and we fell kind of into the
Yeah.
museum
Category.
realm of what it was. So we were closed for a few months, and that was tough. But really the saving grace for us was we do have an online presence. We've got a store on our website that people can go to, and those of us that were full time, and even a couple of the part timers initially, that's what we did all day. And our online store did things that had never done before. So thank you if you ordered, from PEZ.com. It really kept us going, and we've managed to kind of continue that ever since. I think people just remembered, PEZ is still around, and we can get them. And how convenient is this? We can buy pretty much anything you have and have it sent right to our door.
Pretty positive pick-me-up too during some of those dark
Absolutely,
times.
yeah, and not an expensive thing by any means. For $1.99, you get a fun little colorful character dispenser and some candy and whatnot. So yeah.
And how much of the candy is produced here?
All of it, yeah. We do all of the candy
All
for
of
the
it,
entire
okay.
United States
Wow.
and Canada from this building. So it gets to be a lot. It's when you look at the outside of the building, we've got a big silo on the front of the building. It holds 70,000 pounds of sugar at a time. We go through about 100,000 pounds a week on average, which is like those big tanker trucks you see. We average maybe 2 of those a week that they bring in, and whatever that math works out to, it's like 12 million tablets a day.
Oh my
Get created out there. So if there's 12 in a roll, it's on average you're working somewhere around 1 million rolls of candy.
1 million rolls. And did production slow for the candy side at all during COVID? Because you said obviously your online business was doing pretty good.
Right. Yeah, it did. It slowed.
Yeah.
There's supply chain issues
Yeah,
that we're
that's
still
true.
dealing with, and I think will probably continue for a while. You've got the challenge of getting people spread out and working in different areas and things, and it's certainly changed. And retailers weren't taking orders that they had. Just everybody's kind of just looking at each other and what do we do? And not just here, but around every business. I think it just affected everybody in some aspect or another. So we're, I think, starting to slowly get back to what we would call normal, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, the supply chain issues is tough because I'm sure it also affects, no matter if you can get the sugar here, you might not be able to get all the dispensers made elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. With China still being in a lot of the lockdown, we've got 3 different manufacturing points for us now. We've got Hungary, Vietnam, China. So we've got different dispensers in different places, but still, anytime, just transport here in general sometimes is taking longer, and certainly things are more expensive. And I hear some of the woes of talking to other people in other departments, and it's tough. And we see that through people that come here, and it's visits aren't what they used to be quite yet. We're getting there though. I'm really pleased. We had a very nice spring break recently, so I'm optimistic summer's going to be nice, and I think we're on the way up on a good rebound.
I mean, it's so fascinating as someone who's a first time here. Now I'm like, gonna want to tell my friends because it is just so like colorful and happy and interesting. That was going to be my next question is, what type of visitor does this place bring? Is it bringing in people from out of state? I know obviously you had come at one point and you were living in the Midwest.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting because, I don't know, probably a year or 2 into doing this, we had, some television and interest, and people wanted to do it. And one of the questions I kept getting was, where are people coming from? And I wasn't quite sure. So I actually put, the old-fashioned world map on the wall down in the lobby, and, it's got the United States, and then it's got the rest of the world right above it. And it was like, tell us where you're from. Sign our guest book, and, we'll give you a little dot to put on the map. And in that first year, I was really kind of taken back, but we had visitors from all 50 states and 50 different countries in that first year. So it's not just people from out of state, it's people from out of the country. And it's I think most of the people that walk in here were not expecting to be here that day. They saw the sign on the highway, they saw the billboard, and they're like, what, PEZ? And next exit, let's go. And we're right off the exit. It's super convenient when you're traveling. We're right on the major artery of 95 here, so millions of people pass within a mile here every day. They see the sign, it's bright, it's fun, it's colorful, let's go check that out. And I tell you, the nightmare that is traffic in New England is in our favor. So I can't tell you how many people we have had that are stuck in traffic and have been for hours, and they hit that exit and go, we just wanted to stretch the legs and take a break from sitting in traffic all day. And they come in and they had a good time for a while and got some candy, and back out they go to where they were.
That is so funny, because I won't tell our legislative team that as they work to improve traffic in Connecticut.
Yeah, if you can create that bottleneck around exit 41, it's
just
helping
keep
PEZ,
it small, just like a little half hour. People just are getting restless. Do you have a chance to? Obviously, you're extremely busy, but some of the people that are coming. Has this, do they have a tour of Connecticut while they're on the East Coast? Or all right, I'm going to knock off PEZ, some other landmarks in the area?
Yeah, we usually ask, it's one of the things we tell staff, just be conversational with people, find out what they're doing, what brought them in. They're looking at the area, they're visiting New Haven, they want to go to the hamburger place, get the first, Louis lunch, I think, down there. They want to go eat pizza down, everybody. That was everybody when I moved here. They're like, go eat pizza down there. It's like the little triangle of pizza down in New Haven that's, phenomenal. And, so they're checking all that out. There's a couple of great aquariums that they're visiting, the Mystic Seaport up there, so I hear a lot of this stuff, a lot of casino visitors, that's not too far. So, there's enough stuff along through here that people can, do little hop, skips, and jumps, and make certainly a nice weekend or day of wherever it is they're going.
Certainly a good pitch for that low-calorie dessert after all that New Haven pizza, right?
Right.
It won't weigh you down. And speaking of businesses in Connecticut, and jokingly that traffic helps you, but what could make it even better for you to continue to thrive as a business in Connecticut?
Oh man, ease up a little bit on some of the regulations. I hear from, I work fairly close with our HR because we do, bring in a number of part-time staff and things like that. I've got my full-time group, but we do summer hirings and, things like this, and just she's always, the regulations, it really makes for a tough business environment. And that there was something this week, I think it was on one of the radio broadcasts I was listening to, they were talking about, new legislation that was passed again, and it changes what you listen to after a while when you start to realize how some of this stuff is really affecting you. And just ease up a bit on that. That would be nice, especially when you've got the perspective of coming from another part of the country, and it was a little easier, it seemed sometimes. So
to hire. Are you guys dealing with a labor shortage at all? A lot of businesses are.
Yeah, I would say so. It's a dramatic decline in the number of people that are applying for open positions that we have. And, I don't know what to attribute that to. I think, certainly we're competing with ultimately everybody, but, I think maybe people are being more selective in what they want to do. I think one thing that we have going for us, it's just, it is a fun work environment, and, certainly that is a piece of it, but, the hours that we offer, at least on this side of the building, I mean, it's perfect. We've got like an 11 to 4 business operation here, so it's right in the middle. We don't do early, we don't do late. It's just kind of right in the middle of the day. So I think we, from that standpoint, I think we've got a pretty good thing to offer, some of the people that are looking for, something different. And it is, we've got you guys visiting today, so there's always fun things coming up that comes, you never know who's going to walk in, you never know who's visiting, things like that, so it's always fun.
In terms of, that was going to be my last question, but then you just said in terms of you never know who's going to walk in. Has anyone walked in here that surprised you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it just, some people, that I know, there's been a couple of comedians that,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, that's such and such, and, nobody would recognize them probably, or I shouldn't say that, 'cause that's not fair. But, I did. I thought that was pretty cool. We've had a couple of musicians. I think John Ratzenberger, if you know the name, he's been in every Toy Story movie as a voice.
Yeah.
He was Cliff Clavin on Cheers. I mean, he's such a, iconic actor, and just comes walking in one day and
Looking
it's like,
at your PEZ collection.
oh my God, and just such a nice guy. And it turns out he's local and, wanted to do something with PEZ. He was looking to buy dispensers for voices of characters that he did. And,
That's so
we've got a
cool.
display over here that we ultimately created, 3 of, one for him, one for our CEO, and one for Disney, is how big that went. But I mean, it just, how cool is that, and I'm getting to be the old guy here. So, some of the staff, they're early college, high school, stuff like that. And there's been a couple people come in, and they're like, oh my God, it's
Some famous TikTok influencer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's that? And they're like, it's,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome. So while we're recording, it is the last day of legislative session, and a group of kids, they were really pushing for the state candy to be the lollipop. Legislators did mention PEZ. Ultimately, they voted on the lollipop. How are you feeling right now?
Oh, I'm disappointed. We're disappointed. But, I think, it's the... I think in reading a little bit of the backstory, because I was like, well, what about PEZ? I mean, we've been here since 1972, certainly, quite some time. But I think there's something with the brand name, the brand aspect of it that kind of prevented it from consideration. So it's a fair enough reason. You can't fault anybody for that. So you go with the generic lollipop, and you dig into that a little bit. And I hear it was invented here. So probably maybe okay, but come on, PEZ. We got our own road, so maybe we can get something else down the road.
Next year we'll think about it.
Next year, yeah, maybe it'll be a rolling honorary type thing.
Well, thank you so much for making the time and space for us to speak with you.
You're welcome, anytime.
And if you're interested in listening to any of our other BizCasts, you can do so on Apple, YouTube, and for more episodes, you can also head to CBIA.com.